In an effort to avoid default or insolvency, the Oakland City Council made some difficult choices last night, approving legislation that includes cutting both police and fire services to help close a multi-million-dollar budget deficit. As KRON 4's Dan Kerman reports, those cutbacks will go into effect the first of the year.
We find ourselves in an incredibly difficult budget situation, and with this projected deficit. There are no easy answers here, and most of what's before us is really hard to swallow.
Tuesday night, the Oakland City Council faced the music, and by a 5-1 vote, the council approved massive budget cuts to close a $129 million budget shortfall. Among the reductions, the closure of 2 fire stations.
There will be impacts, but I want our citizens to know when you call 911, we're going to show up.
But Oakland's fire chief says closing 2 fire stations will lengthen response time. Right now, the department is trying to figure out which 2 fire stations will yield the least amount of impact.
There are no fire stations that we can afford to close and not feel an impact. We need every one of our firehouses and a few more. But there are certain districts where the run volume is lower and we can cover it a little easier.
4 additional fire stations are slated to close by early February as part of the council's budget balancing legislation. But the council also approved Councilman Dan Kolb's amendment that if the city does receive its next $10 million payment for the sale of its half of the Coliseum, the first $7 million will go towards preventing the closure of those additional fire stations.
If you have a fire station that's closed, then getting to somebody who's calling for 911 for a medical reason, it could take extra minutes. And those extra minutes could be the difference between life and death. And that's why that first $7 million has to go to the fire department to protect fire safety, medical response.
The budget balancing measure also calls for laying off nearly 100 city employees as early as February, and a $32 million cut to the police department budget through the cancellation of 2 police academies and massive reductions in overtime, which is currently used to make up for a lack of staffing. That went too far for Councilmember Noel Gallo, who was the lone vote against the belt-tightening measure.
We're not recognizing and promoting and proposing what the public is demanding, that is public safety to be number one.
KRON 4 reached out to Oakland Police Chief Floyd Mitchell to find out how he plans to keep the city safe with less money and fewer officers to do it. He did not make himself available for an interview. Dan Kerman, KRON 4 News.